New uniform. New name on the chest. 6 missions later. Natasha Carter's watch is broken, her wallet's empty, and 5 purple hearts glint in the dark. How did Hope survive? Natasha Carter joined on a Tuesday. She signed the form with a cheap pen that left a smear on her thumb. No camera followed her, no speech. A recruiter stamped the page. The sound echoed like a small hammer inside her ribs. Her mother pressed an empty wallet into her hand at the bus station. "Take it," she said. "Fill it with the future." Natasha laughed and said she'd fill it with receipts and dust. They hugged too long. When they let go, the fabric on Natasha's sleeve felt cold. She wore her father's watch. It was old, scratched. The second hand stuck at 12, then jolted forward, stubborn. It had cracked when her father fell off a ladder the year before. He never fixed it. He said a steady delay reminded him not to rush. Natasha said it 5 minutes fast. She liked chasing time. The bus roared away from the town, past the welding shop and the diner with the burned sign, down the dusty road that ended in the interstate. She watched the town in the side mirror until it became a smear and then nothing. Boot camp came at her like weather. Orders, sand, sweat. The ground held heat like a grudge. Her bunk rattled at 500 even when no one touched it. She learned to fold, to run, to breathe in the dark. She learned how quiet a mess hall can get when the drill instructor stands in the doorway. A medic named Ruiz taught her how to pack gauze and check pupils. "Hands save lives," he said. "Mouths make trouble." Natasha practiced with a steady grip. She practiced until her fingers remembered what her head could not. She wrote letters home. Just short lines on torn paper. No stories. No fear in ink. The empty wallet lived in her locker. She put the first pay stub in it and smiled at the weight. Her watch caught on a cargo net. The face scuffed worse. She didn't mind. The second hand still stuttered and leaped. She trusted the leap. Graduation felt like a quiet door opening. She pinned the badge, stood in the row, breathed the same air as 100 others. Birds crossed the sky over the parade deck. One bird broke from the line and banked hard, chasing its own shadow. Orders came. She would fly. Rescue crew. Dust-off medic. Rotors and radios and nights that never ended. She read the handbook until the pages softened. First flight out. A training hop over flat country. She touched the frame of the door and counted to 3. 3 meant ready. 3 meant step where your boots belong. The airfield watched them lift. The horizon was thin and silver. She thought of the wallet and the watch. Empty and broken. Both still doing what they were made to do. The pilot's voice crackled. A smile in it. Nice and easy, new blood. Natasha scanned the ground, traced roads like veins, felt the skin prickle of possibility. A convoy cut across the sand below, dust rising behind like a wake. Then the radio bled static. A word punched through. "Contact," the pilot banked. The cabin tilted. On the ground, a plume went up like a fist. Natasha clipped in and reached for the aid bag. She felt the watch catch her skin as the helicopter dropped toward the fight. The second hand froze at 12. Then something, too bright, too close, flashed against the windscreen, and the glass spider-webbed. Alarms sang. The rotor thumped like a heart trying to run. The pilot steadied the bird. Hold, hold, hold. Natasha swallowed the taste of metal. They flared in low. Wheels kissed dirt. The dusty road kicked back into the cabin and coated everything with a thin film of grit. She breathed it in. It felt like it entered her bones. "Go!" the crew chief yelled. Natasha jumped into heat. The convoy was strung out along the road like beads pulled too far. One truck burned. Another knelt on a ruined axle. Men waved, small in the glare. She ran with the bag. Boots slid on loose rock. The watch bit her wrist. She didn't look down. A private lay behind a tire, both hands pressed to his side. His eyes were bright and angry. "Don't let me die," he said as if it were a command. "Then you won't," she said. Tourniquet, bandage, another bandage. The world shrank to the square of his skin and the rhythm of his breath. "Bird can't stay," the crew chief called over gunfire. Rounds skittered off metal. The pilot pulled power. The helicopter lifted, then settled again like a bird in wind. 30 seconds, the pilot said. 30 or we're scrap. The private went first. She lifted. He grunted. A sergeant grabbed his shoulders. They moved as one awkward animal. Up, in, down. A second man crawled from under the truck. His wallet fell from his pocket. It spilled nothing. Natasha saw the hollow leather, the crease worn deep. It reminded her of home, Of her mother's joke that coins only weigh you down. She stuffed the wallet into his pocket as she dragged him to the stretcher. Go, go! The ground jumped under her boots. She turned to run and saw a figure down the road halfway to the last vehicle. No movement. Just a boot, the soul staring at the sky. 10 seconds, the pilot said. Carter! The crew chief yelled. Her watch ticked once, stuck. She counted to 3, stepped off the safe line. The dusty road felt like time itself. Every step took longer than it should. Her breath shortened. She hated that. The figure was a corporal. Shrapnel glittered in his sleeve. The sleeve was wet. He blinked at her like he couldn't quite place her face. You late, he said. He tried to smile, failed. She laughed once. Traffic, she lifted. Her spine sawed. The helicopter drifted sideways, nose pitching toward the sun. 2, 1. The pilot barked. The corporal's dog tags were hot against her palm. His hand closed on her sleeve. I heard the stories, he said softly. About the girl with the broken watch. Stories are lazy, she said. They cut corners, the air burned. The road yawned, she ran. Gravity reached for her ankles with every step. In the cabin, the crew chief leaned out, arm extended, a silhouette against the sun. A shadow crossed the road, huge and sudden. The downwash kicked up a wall of dust. Natasha couldn't see the bird. She grabbed at air and felt fingers close around her wrist. Her watch strap tore. She felt her arm yank up, the corporal bumping the skid, the world tilting, and something heavy slammed the helicopter's tail. The landing was ugly but merciful. Metal screamed. The rotor chopped desert air to pieces. They skidded, stopped. Silence arrived like a stunned animal. Fuel's fine. Tail took a kiss. The pilot's voice tried to be calm. Not flying far, the crew chief said. They had 3 wounded aboard now. The corporal breathed in tight bursts. Natasha rode each breath with him, up and down like a rowboat in chop. She kept pressure where pressure mattered. Her gloves were red and dust gray. When the backup bird lifted them out, the corporal reached for her sleeve again. Promise, he said. She didn't know what he meant. Okay, she whispered, because sometimes the word okay holds a person together. Back at base, the med tent smelled like antiseptic and tired coffee. Natasha washed her hands until the sink looked like a crime scene. Her watch dangled by one stitched loop. The second hand had given up. It shivered and lay still. Ruiz found her outside on a crate. He held a replacement strap. He didn't ask for the story. He tightened the strap, clicked a buckle, nodded. Don't throw away a thing that remembers, he said. She sent her pay home that night. The empty wallet felt honest in her hand. She tucked a photo into it. 2 faces. Hers and her mother's shadows stretched across a lawn. She liked that the shadows looked taller than the people. The call came at midnight. Village hit. More wounded than beds. No time for a briefing, just a grid and weather. Hot, windy, mean. They went in low. Tin roofs flashed. A dusty road cut the village like a scar. Small arms fire reached up at them like spite. They landed behind a wall of broken brick. Inside the clinic, chaos was a language. Crying. Prayers in 3 tongues. A boy with a splintered arm held a plastic car and wouldn't let go. A woman bled into a scarf and apologized for the stain. Natasha moved through it like a swimmer in a river. Touch, lift, tie, speak soft, repeat. A blast went off 3 streets over. You could feel the air flinch. The crew chief stuck his head in the door. 2 minutes, she chose fast. The ones who die first if you hesitate. She loaded a man with a chest wound. She loaded a girl with a fever that burned up 2 thermometers. Then she saw him. A translator she'd met once, kind eyes. He had taught her the word for hope and laughed when she said it wrong. He lay on the floor, very still. She knelt beside him, and the noise around her narrowed to a line. He squeezed her fingers. Not my day, he said, smiling with cracked lips. Not yours, she agreed. They carried him out. On the threshold, her watch snagged a nail. The strap tore again. The face hit the doorframe and split glass like ice. For a second, the world was only the ticking. Tick, stop, tick, stop. It felt like a dare. Outside, the street went white. Pressure slapped her. She woke under the helicopter, hearing voices as if from underwater and the smell of hot metal and cordite. Her arms stung. Shrapnel pebbled her skin like cold rain. Someone shouted, "Carter's hit." She sat up. She said she wasn't. She was. Her bag was gone. She reached for the translator. He blinked at her, stunned. Alive. Good. She could work with alive. A second blast rolled up the street like thunder trolling for courage. The pilot shouted for lift. The crew chief pulled. Natasha's hand slipped in blood. She looked up and saw a third plume begin to gather at the far end of the dusty road. No sound yet. Just a shimmer. A wave building. She was still in the street when the roof across from her let go. And a figure stepped into that same doorway with a rifle, sight settling on her chest. The shot cracked the air in two. Brick dust bloomed beside her ear. A squad rolled around the corner in a storm of sound. The rifleman fell backward with his shadow jumping off the wall. Hands grabbed Natasha's vest and threw her into the helicopter. The downwash hurled sand into her teeth. She lay between two stretchers, counting breaths to prove the math still worked. Back at base, the doc pulled shrapnel from her forearms with tweezers and a patience that felt like mercy. A new ribbon, a thin envelope of words, Purple Heart. Everyone said the same lines. You did your job. You did more than your job. Hero is only a word. It breaks if you press on it. She replaced her watch face with clear tape. Ugly fix, honest fix. Time looked wounded but faithful. They sent her north to the mountains. The map showed a village like a dropped pin. The pilot said, terrain's rude. The crew chief said, bring extra gauze. They climbed into thin blue. Ridges stacked like broken ribs. Wind argued in the rotor. They set down on a patch barely wide enough, the skids flirting with empty space. A patrol had walked into a bowl of rock and bad luck. 2 down, 1 missing. The missing one was a sergeant with a voice like gravel and patience like a father at a science fair. She found him by the sound he didn't make. No yelling, no pleading, just a quiet that did not belong here. He lay under a ledge with a leg turned the wrong way. He looked at her and made a joke without words. The raised eyebrow said, of all people. She said, I know. She set his leg. He bit the inside of his cheek and looked at the sky. She started an IV. The bag swung from a rock with tape and willpower. Bird can't land here, the radio said. Wind danced. The ledge threw back every syllable with a mocking echo. She and another medic built a litter from a poncho and stubbornness. They lifted and stepped into the climb. The mountain demanded payment with every foot. Her watch kept catching her glove. She wanted to tear it off and throw it down the slope. She didn't. She counted steps with it. 50 for a breath. 50 to check the sergeant's eyes. 50 more to lie to her own legs. They reached the ridge as weather rolled in like a curtain. Clouds swallowed their path. The helicopter circled, a bug against a bowl of gray. 2 minutes of visibility, the pilot said. Not a second more, they ran. The litter bucked in the wind. Her shoulders burned like someone had poured salt under the skin. At the landing point, the mountain let go of her heel for a heartbeat. She slipped. The litter tilted. The sergeant's hand shot out and grabbed her watch wrist. The watch band snapped. For 1 stupid second, she grieved the band. Then she yelled, push! And they shoved the litter onto the deck. The bird lifted, tail swinging wide, rotor scything mist. The deck edge slid past under her boots. She felt the drop pull at her calves. The crew chief's fist grabbed her vest and yanked her home. They cleared the ridge with maybe an inch between rotor tip and rock. The mountain swatted their tail with a gust. Metal popped. The pilot swore like it was a prayer. She laughed. It came out like crying. The sergeant tapped her sleeve. Got kids, he whispered. Twins, tiny, mad at the sun. Tell them it apologized, she said. He smiled, went still. The monitor beeped like it was speaking through a sock. Back at base, the wind followed them for an hour after landing, threading dust through the seams of the tent. The doc taped her ribs. A second ribbon. Another envelope of words. That night she went to the PX. She bought a cheap watch band and a pack of gum. Her wallet was empty again, but that had never bothered her. Things weigh you down. She liked to travel light except for the names because names were heavy and she carried them. The next morning she woke to a bass siren that sounded wrong. Not a drill. Not a test. A deeper note. A warning that felt like a door slamming in a house you thought was empty. She ran outside, boots unlaced. Black smoke folded over the flight line, and then a voice on the net said a word she hated. Mayday. The crash site was a field of torn earth and half-melted paint. They kept a respectful distance. Heat still wrote its name in the air. Later the board said mechanical, but the ground called everything gravity and left it at that. Natasha packed light and moved again. City this time. Close alleys. Power lines like spider silk. The brief said hostage rescue, tight timeline, no clean exits. She checked her bag. Scissors. Tape. IV. Morphine she would avoid if she could. A child's bracelet someone had given her to deliver to a safe house. It said brave in letters that tried too hard. She kept it anyway. It felt like a promise a stranger could make on your behalf. They roped in at night. The roof was soft. Under her boots, the gravel sounded like bones. Street dogs barked once, then thought better of it. They stacked on a door and went through. Inside, walls didn't meet at right angles. Windows looked at each other like suspicious neighbors. A stove hissed with nothing on it. Downstairs, a man moaned in a voice that had learned restraint. They found him in a pantry, tied with wire, eyes too calm. Natasha cut the wire and counted his breaths. "Help the others," he said. "I am okay." He wasn't, but he could wait. They followed the sounds down a hall that smelled like bleach and smoke. A guard fired wild. A flashbang answered. The guard folded, his gun clattering under a table. In the room that mattered, two hostages stared at the wall like it held a door painted only for them. One bled from a shoulder. The other had hands that wouldn't stop shaking. "Time," someone said. Natasha moved in. She packed a wound, sealed a hole in a lung with a square of plastic that had once been a bag. She thought of the wallet, empty, a good space. She thought of the watch. Cracked. Still insisting on time. They were almost clear when the stairwell filled with footsteps like rain at your back. A grenade rolled into view, took a lazy turn against a boot, and stopped 2 tiles from her knee. Her brain split into 2 rooms. One room watched the spoon fly. The other counted. She grabbed the hostage and turned. Something hit her hip like a hammer. Smoke. A ringing that erased the world. She woke on the floor, face pressed to a tile that was trying to be clean. Her ear bled into the grout. The crew chief, no, different man, different team, dragged her by the vest. He shouted, but his voice reached her in the slow way of snow falling. They made the alley. Fresh air felt like a new language. She blinked up at a slice of sky cut by wires. In that sky, the moon looked like a coin you'd never spend. "Fourth," someone said, holding out a form she didn't read. She signed a line. Natasha Carter. Ink skipped where her hand shook. Purple Heart number 4. She hated the number. She hated that she knew what the next hours would smell like. They handed her back her watch. The face now was a collage of tape and scuffs. It ticked irregularly but somehow kept the truth. She listened to it in the dark and felt stubborn. The next mission came with no buffer. No time for the ear to stop complaining. No time for the ribs to forget. Deep, the brief said. Fast in, fast out. A name that mattered to someone with power and therefore to all of them. They boarded a helo that wore dust like a uniform. The pilot didn't look back. The crew chief tucked her bag where she could find it with her eyes closed. They rose into a night that felt stretched too thin. The ridge ahead glowed with small fires like warning eyes. She chewed the gum from the PX and felt 17 again, and then not at all. Over the target, the headset hissed. "Ground's hot. Hell's E's a rumor. Copy." They fast roped into a courtyard that had no right angles. Shadows moved where walls lied about their edges. A door opened before they touched it. A man stumbled out, blood on his shirt, eyes too bright. He said a name, not hers. A name she'd heard in the brief. Then he fell on her boots. She reached to catch him, and a shot took the brick next to her head and turned it into a storm of red dust. They pushed through. The team split, poured into rooms, cleared corners that didn't exist. Natasha stayed with the fallen man. Pulse absent, then thin. Then there if you begged. She worked small miracles with ugly tools. Gloves stuck to blood. Tape refused to stick to sweat. Nothing elegant. Everything necessary. She lifted her head in time to see the team leader go down like a cut rope. She crawled to him, elbow deep in dust. High entrance wound. Low exit dream. She pressed, sealed, lied. "You're fine." His eyes said, "I don't believe you." And then, "I'll try." A child's cry came from behind a cabinet. She found a girl with a bruise that mapped a hand. Natasha gave her the bracelet that said brave. The girl read the letters with a finger, lips moving like a prayer. The courtyard filled with the helicopter's wind. A new bird. New chance. The pilot sang numbers. 5, 4, 3. A sniper watched from a window you couldn't see until it became a mouth. The bullet found Natasha where armor wasn't. She felt the heat and then the cold and then the distant. She thought of the empty wallet. She pictured filling it with buttons, with names. She did not stop moving. They loaded the team leader and the fallen man. She climbed in after, knees trembling like loose screws. The crew chief pushed her down. Stop. She didn't. She pressed a gauze pad to a hole that argued with her and won. The helicopter shuddered. Somewhere metal complained in a voice older than language. The pilot lifted a hand and put it back on the stick. They left the courtyard and flew into a sky that had decided not to end yet. The flight was 20 minutes of intention. Her watch ticked, then didn't.